Hello and welcome to Meet Your Inspiration podcast with Meri and Rich. Here we're talking about inspiration, motivation and empowerment. Our guests are ordinary people who became extraordinary, and we're sharing their stories. We want to empower you and to become the person you want to be and to go beyond your dreams.
Today's special guest is Mr. Chris Henry. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, you are a full-time photographer and with an incredible history, and we met you...
He's our photographer.
Our photographer.
Yeah. And we share. Lots of people seen our headshots.
Yes.
And few, we had few together, but we're going to go for a proper, how they call this when two people are together. It's not headshots, how they are called.
No. We have to move away from that.
No. No, because when you have that is headshot, but when you've got
portrait shoot?
Portrait.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, let's do that. So yeah, we're going to have a proper ones because I remember that wasn't too much in the plan initially. But yes, Chris made really good photos for us. And later on, we're going to go on that, and I'll share my side as well about that because it was very interesting. But before that, how we met you, first of all. We like to start with that.
Networking events, wasn't it? It was
Yes.
Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, I think so.
Actually,
I think we met first, I think
so.
Yeah.
And I've heard about you from Mel Dixon. Big shout out to her.
Absolutely.
One of our guests and one incredible member of the networking families in Kent.
Absolutely.
I would say amazing woman.
Absolute networking queen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
actually.
She knows everyone and
Yes,
everyone knows
networking
her.
and selfie queen. This is
Yeah.
how we call her
Yeah.
because she was giving us here.
I think
how
there are two ladies in Kent that seem to go to networking and do it amazingely well.
Leanne Eason.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And Mel
Dixon.
And we are lucky to have them both in our circle.
Absolutely.
What you were doing for Mel? This was the beginning of your photography journey, or not really?
No. Not the photography journey. And Mel's one of these people who everyone knows, but I have no idea how I know her. I think originally the first bit of work that I did for her was what I still do now. It's shoot the women across the sectors, networking stuff. I think, again, I met her at a Chamber of Commerce
Oh, okay.
as well. So Melissa runs these sort of ad hoc networking events with Tyler Christie from Betshanger Park. And I think Melissa was looking for a photographer. And despite the fact that I am, you may be able to tell viewers, not a woman, nevertheless, I came along and shot the events. And I think there have been 5 or 6 of those. I'm actually hosting the next one in my studio.
Oh, amazing.
In March.
In Folkestone.
In Folkestone.
And I will be there because now I can go in a tent. Until now I couldn't, but now I will be able.
Because now you're a woman.
She's always
I
am a woman, yeah.
No,
I'm a free woman, let's say.
She's a free woman with a flexible boss.
Working.
Apparently she's got a flexible boss who allows her to do things that otherwise she wasn't.
That's the reason. Because I love
flexible.
it. Okay, let's take you back to your story and to take us, once you finish secondary school, what did you decide to do and which path did you take?
When I finished secondary school, I had to make things up again because when I was at secondary school and doing my A-levels, I was predicted some quite high grades, and a bit like actually Hayden, who we were speaking about before we started recording, similar sort of thing. I was predicted quite high grades, but didn't get them. And like all fairly posh middle-class boys, I was predicted to go on and study law at Oxbridge. And that was the sort of path that I had assumed for myself. But I didn't get the A-level grades that I was predicted and had to rethink. So I've always been a musician. I play the cello and the bass. And I had been experimenting with electronic music, and I did a music A-level. So I thought that I would go on and do music tech at a London university after a gap year. And I said this to my parents, and they very quickly corrected me. That was not what I was going to go and do.
Oh, it's a shame. You could have been the next Hauser. You could have been Hauser.
I could have been, yeah. Oh, parallel universe. So I went on a gap year, but I had a bit of a volte-face, and think about what I was going to do. So I had these grades, and my dad has always been a politician, not at the national level, but he's been town councillor, county council, and district councillor, depending on what the wards look like, and mayor of Beaconsfield as well, where I grew up. And so we'd already always talked around the living room table about political stuff, and I thought that would be interesting. So I applied to and got into the University of Kent to study politics and international relations, but with a year in Japan. I was looking through the prospectus and thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool. So I applied through clearing and got into Kent to study that. And I was told subsequently, about 2 months later, when I spoke for the first time to the person who was leading the programme, the late Dr. Sarah Hyde, that she wouldn't have let me onto the programme had she actually spoke to me. She told me this to her face. She was quite a woman.
Direct.
Direct, yes, brutally so, because I hadn't got the grades. So fortunately, I did get onto the programme, and that started a career actually in politics and political philosophy that would later take me on to do a doctorate in it.
Tell us, you went to Japan?
I did for my third year.
So did you spend a whole year in Japan?
Yeah, about 10 months.
Wow.
So that was in the third year. Like, you know, you might have gone on the Erasmus program where you're abroad. I went to Japan and went in October. I think came back in July, something like that.
How did you find that experience?
It was wonderful. It was really, really enjoyable. I've never particularly been into sort of Japanese subculture thing. I don't know my animes. Sorry, I don't know my, my manga. Sorry, but I've always really, really liked the language. I think it's very beautiful to speak and listen to. I find the history really interesting. It can be a bit trite and a bit over sort of emphasized, but the emphasis on Japanese respect and a sort of appreciation for virtue that I find kind of inspiring. So that was interesting. But of course, it's like any other country, and people just live and get by, and so I found that interesting to live and explore as well. So it was, I really enjoyed it.
So when you're in Japan, one of the things that I was struck about Japan is the countryside and the atmosphere and the images that you see, like throughout. And obviously, being now a photographer, there must have been lots of moments for photography while you were in Japan, because it's stunningly beautiful.
It's stunning, yeah. I bought my first camera in advance of going to Japan. So I had a bit of kit that I was fortunate enough to be able to take round. And yeah, some of my favourite photos that I've still taken today are photos that I took in Japan. I've got one photo that I took in one of the districts of Tokyo, which was where I was living, called Akihabara. And Akihabara is the sort of tech district. It's where you go if you want like chipsets or games, or go to any of the kind of creepy manga cafes and things like that. And I put the camera down on one of the crossroads. I'd held it low and extended the shutter speed. And so I took the photo of all of the cars, and you could see the tail lights sort of streaming across. And on the left of the shot, a taxi had stayed still, so that was perfectly in focus. And then everywhere around it, you can see the yellow autumnal leaves of the very vibrant, saturated Japanese autumn, and it's still one of my favourite photos today. Yeah. And then you've got like cherry blossom season.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
So yeah. No, Japan was wonderful for photography. Yeah, it's nice.
So how did you find the language? Obviously, you mentioned about the language. Did you learn a little bit of language before you went, or did you find yourself learning while you were there? Because it's quite hard to learn that language, which is like not even relatable in terms of because of the characters and things. It's very different, isn't it?
Very different. Yeah, there are three alphabets, and the grammar's a little bit like German. It's exactly the same, bizarrely, as Turkish. If anyone speaks Turkish, the grammar is exactly the same. Not because they're related; it's completely evolutionarily separate. But yeah, so very different. Did I learn it before I went? No. There were some token language lessons, but like all language tuition in England, it's a bit half-assed. So I picked it up when I was there. I had a girlfriend. She was Japanese. She was very good at helping me learn Japanese. She spoke English very well, and we'd speak the English for the words and the language that I didn't understand in Japanese, and for the rest of it we'd speak in Japanese, and she'd try and push me a little bit, every conversation to adopt a new word or something like that. So I ended up speaking Japanese enough to be able to make friendships and not bore people for about 2 hours of conversation. And I think like after 2 hours, people will probably start to get a bit bored because my vocabulary was easy. But I can't write it very well. I took the mentality that if I was going into a restaurant and needed to read the menu, I could always ask somebody what this meant. But if I could read, then I wouldn't be able to speak. That's a duality that doesn't exist. But that's what I leaned on. Yeah.
Can you still talk Japanese? Or?
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Amazing. Oh, I'm really. I would like to go and see, and I'm intrigued by their culture to see all this with my eyes.
It's wonderful.
And this is what makes them, I think, very different than the whole other world.
I went back last 2 years ago. So my girlfriend's brother married a Japanese woman, and they had a kid, and now they live out in Osaka. So we went out a couple of years ago to go and see one of the coming of age ceremonies, and travelled around Osaka and Kyoto and a couple of other places, and it was absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
And what's happened after that year? Did you come back? Did you carry on with?
Yeah, so I did the 4th year of the undergrad, and then I knew that the guy in my 4th year, I remember leaving a seminar room with the guy who would later become my MA and PhD supervisor, and we were walking along, and he looked at me and said, "You know, Chris, I think you might be a philosopher." And I went, "Ooh, okay, well that's some validation. I might go and do that." So he was at the end of that year going to start a master's, somewhat grandiosely called Political Theory and Practices of Resistance. So that was a master's in political philosophy. But it wasn't going to be the year after undergrad. It was going to be the year after that. So I had a year to sort of kick around. So I went back to Japan. I nearly married that woman that I'd met when I was studying out there. Ended up not being the case, but I went back to sort of see if that could happen. And spent another 3 months in Japan. Came back and I had a few more months to sort of hang around and not do much with. So in my 4th year, I'd started rowing on the river in Canterbury. So I rowed historical river tours for a little while, and I carried on doing that. And actually that started a love affair that I had with the Stour in Canterbury, because I rowed in that company for 4 or 5 years, took a couple of years off, and then I punted boats on the Stour for another 6 years or something like that after that.
So how did you find that? Because that's different from rowing, isn't it? Standing up and using, like, did you ever fall in?
No, no, and he's proud to say yes, very much so. Yeah, some of the guys, it's like they think it's part of the job. No, I never fell in when I was punting. I fell in a couple of times when I was rowing. Once because of equipment failure. You put the rowlocks in the sides, which are the things that the oars go in, and I always liked to. I was young, so I always liked to take a big first row to sort of be nice and impressive and get customers' attention and whatnot. So I took a big first pull on the oars, and both the rowlocks snapped off their things, and I went straight back over the boat.
You made a very good impression, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, of course, you get back on the boat, don't you? You get some new rowlocks, you carry on, and the tips were wonderful at the end of that trip. So I carried on doing that. And then the other one, at the end of the tour, when you're going under the King's Bridge in Canterbury, some of the guys would then get on their backs on the seat and leg it under the bridge, which is what they used to do in the long canals in the Midlands. And so I did that, and again, somewhat over-enthusiastically. It was probably at the end of the day and I was knackered, so I threw myself onto the back, legged it, and went straight over the front, and the boat passed open. I don't think the tips were very good for that one. I looked a bit of an idiot, to be honest.
But they did laugh.
Yeah. So I did that for the rest of the year, and then I started a master's in political theory, and then a PhD after that.
So you found all this quite interesting, obviously. If you decide to do it, it's not just for.
Yeah, when I was I've always been interested in ideas, not particularly or not necessarily in the way people think. So I'm not a psychologist by training. I'm a philosopher by training. And I find ideas and the way they relate to the world around us and how society sort of changes and manifests quite interesting. When I was doing my undergrad, I got really, really annoyed by the methods that people were using in the study of politics. So at the academic level, people, when you want to understand about the world, about politics, you develop a sort of methodology which you then apply to a given event or a historical process or something like that. And one of these is like empiricism, just to ground this in something more tangible. And all of these methodologies have strengths and weaknesses. So they can tell you some way about knowing the world, and they can't tell you other things. And I started to get really frustrated about the fact that people didn't even seem to care, it struck me, about the sorts of things that they could know about the world with these methodologies and the sorts of things they couldn't know. And there was a sort of blind faith in the knowledge that they were developing about the world. They were really convinced that they were right. And I thought, how do you know that you're right? To the extent that when I was doing my undergrad and we had to write our final dissertation, they put us through a research methods project. And I started a petition in the department because they weren't including a particular set of methodologies. And I thought that this was basically negligent. They were, because students were being told that the ways of understanding that predominated in the discipline were the only ways of studying and the only ways of developing knowledge. And I was involved in a form of philosophy called critical thought, and there were a bunch of methodologies over here that were being ignored. So I started a petition. It got some signatures, and but yeah, nothing much happened, to be honest.
But you had that passion to
that was the
obviously
start,
to say the things as
and
you
then I
see
did a
them.
master's and a PhD, and effectively it wasn't quite research methods, but I've always been interested in the way that ideas and the forms of and the ways that ideas are generated and developed work, and studying that and what that can tell us about the world around us.
And that led you to be a lecturer after that, isn't it? For quite a few years.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years. I was an associate lecturer in various different ways. You would have heard, people listening would have heard like photographer, and this is probably, it seemed very far away.
But this is why we want to come to that point, because even for me, before you walk in, I said to Richard, it will be really fascinating to hear how this jump was, because they're so different activities, things to do.
Sure.
It will be interesting what led you to, obviously leave that world and to, start the photography.
Yeah, so I was an associate lecturer. I finished the PhD in 2016. I published it a year later as a book, 2017, with Edinburgh University Press, who still very kindly send me a royalties note every year. And it's like, £2.30 or something like that. I don't think they've ever paid me the amount of money that they owe me, because they only pay you like after £50. And so academic publishing doesn't pay very much. But so I published that in 2017. And the sort of Faustian bargain that you make with academia when you do a PhD is that you do a PhD and then you do part-time teaching for X number of years. You gain some experience in teaching and you publish a couple of papers, and then at some stage you get your full-time academic job. And that was the career path that I wanted. And I really, really like teaching, but I also like research. The problem is that since universities changed with the imposition of tuition fees and the sort of education mantra that Tony Blair had, was that so many people went into education, class sizes increased accordingly. University didn't get any more money because tuition fees, although they went up to £9,000, that wasn't extra. That was a replacement of the money that the government was giving universities previously. Exactly. And then that froze. But inflation didn't freeze. So inflation pushed costs higher. Universities lost money comparatively. And so increased student numbers and rising costs meant that universities had less and less money. So that means that people have to teach more and you don't get paid for the research if you're on part-time contracts. So when I left the University of Kent a couple of years ago, 80% of staff at universities, teaching staff, were being hired on part-time contracts. 80%. So they're paid to teach, they're not paid to research, but research is a prerequisite for the teaching.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you've got to
And
teach
maybe
the new
it's taking
stuff.
you much more time to do the research rather than the teaching.
Absolutely, and you're not being paid for it, so you've got to do it in your part time. But because they're all part time contracts, they never pay enough to be able to actually live. Hence, for my extra beer tokens and a bit of rent, I was punting boats on the river. But if you're teaching and punting boats on the river, then you can't research in order to get your promotion. So I, like a lot of my sort of contemporaries, found myself circling this sort of drain of increasingly large amounts of time dedicated to teaching. One corollary of the decrease in money that universities have is that they cut staff pay. And over the last 11 years, university staff have seen a real terms pay cut of 25%. It's like turning up and working for 3 months of the year for free in comparison when you started. And so I had enough. And although I absolutely love teaching, I love research as well. And I found that I could do neither of these very well. And so I started to get quite disillusioned with the
It's a very interesting point, because I think across lots of subjects, and last year I went to a few events, obviously some organised by the chamber, some at the local universities, and also got myself a little bit more involved with the link between education and industry or work effectively. And one of the things that really struck me was the disconnect between when you finish university and you finish doing a particular subject and being ready to move into the workplace and actually have skills which are absolutely tangible. And it doesn't matter whether it's engineering or manufacturing or whether it's coming into like accountancy or something. There seems to be such a disconnect between the two. And I was talking to one of the university principals, and he said to me, "Why do you think that is?" And I said, "Well, I think the hard part is the fact that if you compare with the person who could potentially be a really good lecturer in a university and what they're going to be paid as a lecturer and what they're paid in the workplace in terms of private sector, they're like miles apart. So you're never going to get the right people necessarily to stay in the education side. It makes it very difficult, and it's a big challenge, I think. And and like you said, you're in a situation where you're lecturing and really high end education and helping students, and the creation side is could be really powerful, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And it wasn't sustainable for you.
I think I have a slightly different take on why that happens, on the disconnect between sort of employability skills in the university and what the workplace needs. I think I'd probably resist the idea that it's a pay issue, because I see the sorts of people that are running big organizations, and I mean, at the extreme end, you've got the uber wealthy, the Musks and the blah, 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 and the Bezoses. And I think they're doing some pretty heinous things. And so if the assumption is that, caliber of leadership correlates with amount paid, I think, looking at Musk and Bezos as examples of that disproves the theory, right? I think that Musk in particular, again, he might be an outlier, but he's doing appalling things in the US, particularly with anti-labor sort of practices in the companies, and then his dalliance with Doge and the government and things like that. So they might be outliers, but the sort of lower level, the University of Kent has just merged with Greenwich, and I probably, for contractual reasons, can't say much about the two of those, but it's certainly public record that the University of Kent was in financial difficulty for years before that, and it went through a series of voluntary redundancy sort of sessions. So I would say that the VC, who at the time was paid roughly £400,000, including benefits and pension stuff, probably didn't do a very good job. So you've got then an option. Does that mean that she wasn't paid enough? Right? Maybe we need to pay VC £600,000, and that extra £200,000 would attract a caliber of person that would do better. Or it's just a bit of a fallacy that high pay means great talent. And I think that it's a fallacy that high pay means great talent, for other reasons that probably bore people. So instead, I think what has happened is that the nature of universities has changed, or perhaps more specifically, the nature of what universities have, the demands placed upon universities have changed. So at the height of the university in the 18th century, universities were proper academic institutions, right? You wouldn't have got Immanuel Kant, right, teaching 5 modules at a time that he didn't know anything about, because Kant taught what it was. He was a world expert in teaching, right? And there was a value placed in that kind of philosophy. Or even if it wasn't philosophy, pick a subject, right? Your lecturer was a world expert, as they still are, in those things, and they were respected for that knowledge. And the people going to university were going to university in order to learn that knowledge, purely. But now, universities exist in this sort of economy whereby, and there's a history to this, this all developed in specific theories in the 1980s with the Chicago School of Authors. Universities exist within a context that is where they are effectively glorified professional and training colleges for the workplace. And companies can now expect to be able to use this sort of lumpen set of young workers that come out of university for their effectively workers without investing in professional training themselves for it. And then they turn around and complain that the students coming out at universities aren't good enough. Well, hang on, you're getting free labour because, of course, the students themselves are investing in their own education, and then complaining that they're not good enough for your workplace without doing the professional and training development that they used to be obliged to do. So now it might sound like I'm blaming the companies for that, and I don't blame the companies for that. Business owners and hiring managers and things like that, they just want what they want. Of course they want workers. Of course they don't want to pay much money for the hiring of those people. That's their jobs, right? I blame the university leadership and I blame government for kowtowing to those demands, because universities there's a virtue in academic research and critique and scrutiny and all of these classical values of a university that has been undermined by the calls for them to be sort of integrated into the economy and provide training for these companies. And there's been no defence of it put up by university leadership. And that's who I blame. And so I think that's where I slightly disagree with.
It's an interesting
But that's a good point.
Yeah, it's
of
a
view.
really good point.
And it was
It's really
very
good.
interesting because I never knew about what you mentioned. Audio. So it's always interesting. But let's go to photography now.
Sure.
Because I've got lots of questions there.
That's the end of my list.
How?
It's good.
What's happened with why photography, and how you decide it's going to be photography?
So I've always taken photos. I mean, since I bought my first camera, I guess, when I went to Japan. I don't have. I think maybe we talked about this when you guys came over for your photos, but I don't have a voice in my head. Most people will have like an internal monologue that is busier or quieter, right? And I don't. So I have a thing called anauralia. And so that means that like when words come in one ear, they're immediately forgotten. And I think in a sense of sort of resonance. I somewhat have a visual memory, so I can sort of picture things that I've seen, but it tends to be very fuzzy and only if I really concentrate on it. And that means that I kind of live in the here and now, and I'm quite visually stimulated. So I got sick and tired of working at the university, and I thought, well, what else to do? I explored a few different things. I thought, well, maybe I could be an intelligence analyst, PhD in political philosophy. I didn't really want to go into sort of capital P politics, maybe intelligence analysis. So I investigated that. But it turns out in order to be an intelligence analyst, you need a degree in intelligence analysis, such as what I was talking about earlier on, right? The sort of like professional training degree.
Yeah.
It's also, by the way, a really, if you're a Chinese operative or you're a member of the Chinese Secret Service, you know very well how to get an operative inside the British intelligence services. You put a white Chinese young citizen into a degree at Oxford studying intelligence analysis, and 3 years later you've got yourself an operative. Right? Crazy. But so I sort of milled around a few different possible career avenues until I don't often moan on Facebook about things, but I think I did put out a moaning post on Facebook. I'm just sick of this blur. And a mate of mine called Tom, shout out to Tom Travat, he's a very successful, very good headshot photographer in London. He said, well, you've always taken photos and you want to drop out of university or underplay that. Tom, during COVID, did exactly what I later did myself. So he was an academic and he had as a hobby photography, and he played down his academic sort of career and made a go of the photography. And he said, well, I did that. What do you think about that? So I said, well, that's a great idea. So as I said at the launch party of the studio, it's all Tom's fault. If you don't like my work, blame Tom. And that's how I started getting into photography.
Did he help you something on the journey, or?
Yeah, he's been very helpful, and we still meet up and we still talk about all things photography. We work. I still put on or co-host a conference in critical thought every year in London, the London Conference in Critical Thought, and we work together on that. And yeah. So
have you done any training, or how? Because you decide to have you start to take the photos and you decide which you're gonna specialize, what to do, because you are headshots much. What is exactly your photography? Let's say, because I will say something stupid maybe.
No.
Yeah, what is because you don't do all kind of photography, isn't it? You are
I'm ostensibly a portrait photographer, and a portrait photographer. Portraiture is quite a broad, I guess, category. A portrait is basically a picture of a person.
okay.
And so I take pictures of people. And then when it comes to businesses, how that often comes across as in headshots. So for LinkedIn or business pages or marketing, things like that. But it might also be for branding and things like that. It might also be for posterity. And that's as good a reason as well. Or for acting headshots and things like that. So it tends to come across as headshots in business. But did I study? No, at least not how to take photography. So I self-taught how to take photography, and YouTube is wonderful for that. If you want to learn how to be a portrait photographer, indeed any kind of photographer, all the skills that you need are on YouTube. That's the same for Photoshop as well. So I'm a proper nerd, as listeners will have gathered by now, I suspect, and I absolutely love Photoshop and sort of retouching. And I learned everything that I do through a guy called Piximperfect on YouTube. Absolutely fantastic. And it's all for free. So I didn't study any of that.
You just start to practice it, let's say.
Yeah, with friends and family and things like that.
Escape to luxury at Hempstead House Hotel and Spa, an elegant country house hotel in Batchild, near Sittingbourne, Kent. Relax with indulgent spa treatments. Dine in style with exquisite cuisine. Perfect for getaways, weddings and events. Experience luxury in the heart of Kent. Book your stay today.
Be the first to discover Kent's best events all in one free app. What's On in Kent is a new and rapidly growing app where you can find days out information, places to eat, festivals, concerts, markets, and much more around you. Just with few clicks on your phone or computer, you can stay updated with real-time info and explore events across Kent. Don't even think twice. Just download. It's free.
The one thing I'd say that I did study is how to work with people and how to coach people. Because the important thing, or what makes a photographer, is not the gear. And it's really interesting when when you go to photography societies, like guys in particular, love to compare the gear. I can't stand it because it's so unimportant. And some of the best photos that we've ever seen, like the ones that stick in your mind, if I remind you of like that photo of Winston Churchill after the photographer takes the cigar out of his mouth and he's right, it's called the Tiger or something like that. Or that photo of Margaret Thatcher riding a tank, or that photo of Marilyn Monroe standing over the vent.
Yep.
They all stick in your mind, right? And they were all taken at least 50 years ago, right? So think of the camera technology then, right?
Definitely,
It doesn't make any difference. So I don't care about the gear. None of the technological stuff is particularly important. Like, it has to work, obviously, but the bar for that is very low. It's about how you work with people and how you can get something out of the client, the model, whoever's standing there, or put slightly differently, how you can create something with that person. And that I did study, and those are things that I take from my teaching background, from philosophy that I read, and I think from the approach to photography that I take.
And I think this is what makes you different, because I can vote here on 100% that when we came, initially I didn't even take it very serious that we're going to, I thought back in the time, I never had like a very professional way. I remember when I was finishing high school, we had some photographer came, made us photos, but I never experienced what I experienced in your studio. It was, first of all, everything is very professional. What you send us, I never listen, obviously, or what you said, because I was like, how am I going to go without foundation, isn't it? Like, oh no, I need to cover this and that. But next time, read your emails and listen what photographer tell you.
He knows.
Yes.
Or she
But
knows.
one of the things that really, with who we spoke with someone the other day, and I said, we woke in, and it wasn't just like, get ready, have a seat, and let's do the photos. It was that conversation before to start. I never experienced, I never heard people doing it. And I was very close to just turn and to go back because you were asking me questions which really hit me. And I was thinking,
They were
in
really
my
deep.
mind,
So deep.
it was like, why the hell he's asking me all these questions? That's nothing to do with me sitting there and just
Having a
take a
picture
photo.
taken.
Yeah. Because that was my initial first reactions. We talk about that after that, and I share with quite a few people that we don't actually realize. But once we start to talk, I start to think all this, we got quite, deep and touching. And after that, we do all these photos. And as Richard said, I really like when you took, and it's not like, as you see on the TV sometimes, ting, 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 100 times. And after that, let's choose. It was taking, analysis, advice what to do, what you want to show. And I think all this that you said you learned and you did really bring the package, because that day when I left that studio, I was thinking, wow, and I fall in love with my picture. And I told you, and maybe for the people who are listening, I hated having photos of being on camera. That was the reason I never wanted to be on the podcast on the camera, because I've got my personal problems, issues with some parts of my face. And for me to have that headshot, and it wasn't like I was hiding something. Over there, I was myself, and I felt really proud and happy with the person who was there. So it was never a forgotten moment, and so proudly I share it everywhere.
Wonderful.
And I've got it. But it's very important how photographer make you to feel.
It was a very powerful moment as well. It was a very
It
powerful moment
was.
for you, because it really
I had
it really
tears
impacted
in
me.
my
It really
eyes as well, because that was from young age. I hate it. Or if I take a photo, I always will turn on one side, or I will try to do something to hide something that where over there I sat on that chair, and after the conversation and everything, I just forgot about that, and actually I embraced, and I was like, this is really me. So
Wonderful.
it is who it is.
And you pick the moments as well. I mean, it was fascinating, because as you were describing to Chris what you wanted, and he was just actually just getting you into that moment, into that position, and in the mindset was there, and you capture the mindset. It's a very different. It's not capturing just an image. It's actually the mindset that you have at that moment, and like
I
as
think
you
that
said, I
makes
mean, and
the
it's like one picture. It's like, and there's the picture, there's the image, and it's like, wow,
and it makes difference,
yeah, it
how we
does.
start and until you get. So it's impressive how long you are doing that now. 2 years or more?
Oh, I've been full time now for a year.
Okay.
I went to self-employed, December, 1st January 2025, and about 4 years beforehand, I was doing it
Okay.
sort of part time. It's lovely to hear you say that. I was delighted in that and how well that went. And you're absolutely right that a good photo is the end point. It's the very last thing that records everything that happened before, and that mindset and finding out about what it was that you guys wanted from your photos, and all of those questions.
Oh yeah.
What is it that you want to say in it? How do you want to be viewed in your photos? What's the point? Why are we here? Why are you here? All of that is helpful in creating a photo that matters. And I think that's really key. We're surrounded. My professional organisation that I'm part of is Headshots Matter, which that's the badge. And I think Dwayne, the Canadian guy who started this up, hit it perfectly. Actually, I think it's exactly the right name, because it does matter a good photo in a very practical sense, right? It matters. It makes a difference in, and it's what it does is it's different for everybody. But for you guys, and for I suspect most of my clients, they're going to use it to stand out, to show who they are and why somebody might want to engage with them, why they should be engaged with, whether that's an actor, what parts the casting agent should hire them for, various different uses. But we're surrounded by visual assets and generic imagery all the time, stock images, increasing amount of AI imagery as well, which is so astonishingly generic that we're kind of overawed by it. And so what I try to do is I try to create a few images which are singular and which say something about who the person is, but more importantly, where they want to go and how they want to go there. And so it's much more a process of discussion and
Yeah, I think the discussion was much
thinking,
more than
and then you take the photo.
exactly.
Yeah.
If you can give someone advice, because as we talk, I think then as well, we all got these phones in our hands and we take lots of photos. Is there any tip you can give to someone how they can have a nice portrait
How to have
shot? Yeah, just
Come and see
few-
presentary photography.
no. This is for the, of course, this is for the
You want some
professional.
sincerity, that's
But
it.
like, yes, sometimes I don't know. If you with your phone, is there anything that you can just little advice?
I mean,
to-
with the phone, turn portrait mode on, which fakes sort of depth of field and blurriness in the background. But it's got so little to do with the technology that it's not really a question of what to do. So I've got an hour-long video in my blog on how to take phone photography. So so listeners can go onto the blog and have a listen to that. But
Nice.
a few things that I can say right here, right now. If you tap your screen, it will focus on that part of the image. So regardless of whether or not you're taking photos of people, I'd always put on portrait mode, unless you're taking landscapes. But otherwise, portrait mode. Tap on the screen on where you want to focus, and I think your photos will instantly be better. Because otherwise, the camera will try to focus on everything, and it won't. The other thing to do is there's a photographic technique called the rule of thirds. So if you imagine your phone screen and you divide it into a grid of 3x3 sort of squares, and look for lines in your photo. So, hold it up, and then on the screen look for lines. Those lines should generally, and it's hard on an audio medium like to explain, but lines that you're looking at in the image should all line up with that line of 3 grid. So try and put important things on the intersections of the lines, of that grid, and you will immediately probably frame your photos better. But let me draw your attention to the video on the blog, and it's got
much better if you have something like that. Here it is. That's what we.
We'll put the link below.
Of course, the links will be below, and people can have a look. How about was the business journey? Because obviously, starting like the self-employment, I assume that's a totally new journey.
It was, and I was reflecting actually with my girlfriend yesterday just how much I think the last year has changed me. Strangely enough, like professional academics, particularly those in political philosophy and not something like marketing, are not particularly well versed in like marketing or being particularly outgoing or talking about themselves. All of these things are considered by, I think, a lot of academics, for better or for worse. I'm not saying that this is good. A bit gauche, a bit much. It's academics tend to be fairly self-effacing, quite kind of modest, until they got on the platform in the lecture theatre, and then then the ideas are important. So when I was in academia, I tended not to sell myself very well. I didn't talk about what I did. I tried to let the ideas and the publications and the book sort of speak for itself. When I launched the book, it was embarrassing because I didn't have anything good to say about it. Not because I thought it was bad. I mean, it did what it did, but I thought, like, read it, and then if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, then you don't, right? And so when I started photography, I thought, well, I'll take some photos and I'll put them on the internet, and if people like the photos, they'll like the photos and they'll come and see me. And it's just not like that at all.
No.
Then I was introduced to the whole wonderful world of marketing, and I'd say now I spend 80% of my time marketing and networking, probably 10% of my time taking photos, and the other 10% of the time doing like forms and busy work and office work and stuff like that. So business has been very, very different from what I learned in university. And I'm still learning.
Particular people who support and help you, or
there's a long list. I mean,
or any organizations that you join and they were quite helpful on this journey.
Yes, and any success that I may have had has been truly standing on the shoulders of giants. So Melissa Dizon, 100%, absolutely. Caroline Hallett and the Kent Foundation. So Caroline came to see me for her headshots, actually. And whilst we were, she came to the launch of my studio recently, and she said, whilst Chris was taking my photos, little did he realise that I was actually recruiting him for the Kent Foundation at the same time. I was like, sneaky. I love it.
So now you're becoming a mentor for the Kent Foundation?
No. I have a mentor. I have a mentor still. And so his name is Mark Ridley. He is absolutely wonderful. He used to run a sales company with the VP of Deloitte. And so he 100% knows what he's saying. He designed a sort of sales mentality. Absolutely wonderful. So to anyone listening, who needs who would like some help in business, get in touch with the Kent Foundation. If you're under 40, that's the rule. Then go and get yourself a mentor.
But having a mentor was a very important. You found it very beneficial for you.
Incredibly so, and initially just to calm my nerves, because like any sort of starting business owner, you're cash poor, time poor, or probably cash poor, time rich, right? You've got lots of time to be doing stuff and to be throwing into things, but ultimately, you don't start to see money coming in for a little while. And Mark would always be on the other end of a phone or a coffee saying, "You're doing all right." When I go, "Is this right? Am I doing it?" And he would go, "Yeah, just patience. Take a deep breath and just wait, and it'll happen." And that alone was worth its weight in gold as a sort of. But also, it's not just that. He's been very helpful in talking about sort of sales and marketing and stuff. So I can't thank him enough. I mean, other people, there are so many people. Leanne has been wonderful. We mentioned her earlier, Leanne Eason. Her energy and vivacity and her contacts and her networking, she's wonderful. All of the networking groups I've really enjoyed. I think I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with networking because it can feel like there aren't immediate returns on your investment. And I think if you were to run it through a profit-loss analysis, there is no like finance director in the world who would say it makes rational sense to go networking.
Yeah.
But the people that you meet and the referrals and the advice and the friendships that you build through it, I think have been fantastic. So I go to the Chamber of Commerce, Simply Business Club, Synergy Networking, and a big shout out to Linda and the gang at Synergy. I think Linda is absolutely wonderful. And I could listen to her talk about her journey for ages. And you guys as well. I mean, you know, you're wonderful at putting people together and contacting and stuff like that. So we go
This
to
is what we love, and this is how we're finding
it's really
in the
important. Yeah, it's a very
network.
important-
Yeah, it's about the connections and the people that you meet and you find, because this is what we're finding. It's helpful as well because all these people can help you in one or another way to shape you on your journey. Because as they like to say, it's a bit lonely journey when you,
Can be.
especially you are on your own, isn't it? In what you're running as a business day to day.
Can be.
So sometimes it
As
can
an
be.
and as an expert, I mean, someone who actually knows a lot about a particular subject, you know, how you get yourself then in front of the right people is quite hard.
It's very difficult.
And obviously, I mean, having experience working with you in the studio and how you do it, you know, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And I've never seen, I've been to a couple of photo shoots before and never experienced what I experienced with you. And I, you know, wholeheartedly, I would recommend what you do because it's phenomenal and the image is just amazing. But like but for you to share that, because you can't stand up and go, my images are awesome. Because, you know, however awesome they are, you can do. If you're in America, you probably could do that. And they go, right, okay, we're coming over, we'll see you.
We're a bit more self-effacing.
But like we're sort of, but you know, to have somebody say it and to witness it and to actually have the proof in front of them and actually to say, look, you know, I mean, and I've stood in front of a few people and said, if you want to have your photograph taken, go and see Chris, and here's our images, and like, and that
because
is
that's
so
the
powerful because it's real, and that is the most. But the fact that we have this amazing connection, we talk to each other on a regular basis, and we can share leads and opportunities. That in itself is very valuable, and I think you know for anyone setting up a business, you know, like and you rightly so. I mean, I sometimes until 2 years ago, I'd never been to a networking event,
Right.
and when I came down here, obviously there was an opportunity to go out, and I thought, oh, well, it could be very interesting for two reasons. One, you meet amazing people, which actually, when you're doing a podcast like we are, it's absolutely valuable.
Yeah.
If I looked at my other business to do with it in the plastics industry, actually, the networking events that we go to were probably very little value because my clients are all working in these individual factories, and those people don't go out and go into networking events very often. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and I think it works really well for, you know, if you're marketing an image and you're producing something, then networking is amazing, and you never know not only who you meet but also
Who
the
they
people
know.
that they know, and they go, actually, yeah, they might not. I mean, like for me, they might not work in the plastics industry. But they might go, I know someone who runs a factory down the road, and you ought to talk to them.
Sure.
And that is something that's very hard to pick up. But opening our network, and obviously particularly being in a particular area, I think it's so valuable.
Yeah.
And building that network of people is just phenomenal because you never know where it leads.
Yes, absolutely.
And having the confidence, because I mean, I'm sure you're the same. The first time you walk into the room, you go, oh yeah, there's lots of people here. Like, they're all talking in big groups, and you sort of shuffle over and say, hi, I'm Chris, or hi, I'm Rich. And they go, oh, what do you do?
Yeah.
And you feel like, ooh.
Yeah. No,
It's quite intimidating.
it is. It's very strange. And again, like I'm quite used to sitting in a library or, you know, or standing in front of the class. But then you're talking about, the idea or the politics or whatever it is, and walking into the room and saying, "I'm a photographer. You should hire me because."
One, two,
it's very
three.
strange. Very strange.
Have you got any hobbies? Anything else that I don't know you do in spare time? You have spare time,
right.
that just to recharge you and to
what's that?
find your. I don't know. I always need to find time.
Yeah.
Mine is music, seaside, walk, things like that. You need books. Yeah, you need to find something to do.
Yeah, I think you do. But before I answer that, I must say a big thanks to the list of people that I have to say thanks to my partner Natalie, who is absolutely wonderfully supportive, the most supportive person, and couldn't do it without her. So definitely need to say thanks to her. Do I have any hobbies? Yeah, actually. So I've right from when I was young, I've always done like things in my head. I've always been a bit of a nerd, but I've always done things with my body as well. So when I was younger, I did judo. Actually, before that, when I was in primary school, I danced. So I did like the acro modern tap thing that sort of young kids used to do. I got a scholarship to go to a ballet school, but didn't take it up because I thought I'd get bullied for it. I think I was probably right that I would get bullied, but it's if I could go back and do it again, I'd probably. Instead, I went and did judo for a few years. Then after that group ended, because I played the cello for a little while and I was picking up around the age of 13, I went to join a local the youth orchestra at the local music school. So I played the cello in the youth orchestra for a bit. I joined the Young Theatre. So it was a theatre group in the town that I grew up, the Young Theatre at Beaconsfield, where I did technical stuff and then later went on to act and sing in that for a little while. And I did that between, 13 and 17, just before I went on my gap year. Then when I went to university, I did capoeira for a few years. So that's a Brazilian sort of fight style and dance. It's a really interesting history of that. And there are a couple of different ways of doing it. So one is quite sort of, you do it in MMA competitions and things like that. So spin kicks and lots of jumping down stuff. And I did that in England. And then when I went to Japan, there was another capoeira group where they did a different kind of capoeira called capoeira regional, which is much more slow and kind of nuanced and intricate, and absolutely wonderful. So love that. And when I came back to England, I didn't like the style that they did in England quite as much. So I stopped, not wanting to like ruin my love of capoeira. I thought I could take it up another time. But I still wanted something to do. So I joined the Salsa Society at the university. And I've danced that salsa and bachata, another Latin dance, ever since. I taught in Margate salsa and Canterbury haven't done it so much in the last year. I've been a bit predisposed, but salsa and bachata, and taught that. I was in a bachata performance group for 4 years or something like that. So I do have.
What about the acting?
Yeah, actually, I'm.
I've seen something recently on Instagram.
Oh, no.
That's why I have to ask you about it.
Yeah, I've taken that back up since when I got together with Natalie. Natalie loves acting and she does a lot of musical theatre. So I joined the Folkestone Hive Operatic and Dramatic Society, and I did a production. I was in the chorus for a production of Sweeney Todd. I then was the lead in a production of Hobson's Choice, which is a wonderful play. Really, really thoroughly enjoyed that. It was directed by a guy called Graham, who subsequently directed Midsummer Night's Dream. So I played one of the mechanicals in Midsummer Night's Dream last year. And then in March, I'm the detective in an Agatha Christie production called Mirror Cracked. 180 lines to learn in February alone. Good luck me. Yeah. So I do quite a bit of acting as well.
Yeah. Perfect. So definitely your week is
Full
busy and full on maximum, but you're smiling a lot, so I assume you are on your happy place and you feel
loaded up with caffeine and
ready for the day.
Yeah, right.
But I hope photography is giving you that fulfillment for life. at least you look like a person who really enjoy what he's doing.
I think it allows me. I do miss working in the university quite a lot, and if you're a friend of mine, you're probably unlikely to have like I don't follow football. I don't know what the scores are like. All of my conversation tends to be fairly maybe serious or about stuff. So I still very much kind of got that academic mindset. But what photography allows me to do is it allows me to kind of live in the moment a little bit more and do it a little bit more experientially. So I'm quite taken with beauty. I like exploring beautiful beauty, and by that I don't mean he's a photographer, so he must like taking photos of beautiful women. It's not that. I think there's a lot of beauty to be seen in emotions, emotionality, the relationships that people develop with each other and that they exude, and things like that. And I quite like capturing that, and I think that's meaningful. So yeah, I do get that. And some, I mean, they're not mutually exclusive. So we use philosophical concepts all the time in everyday life. So every time we use the word fair, for example, and we probably all use the word fair at least once every day, there are different ways of thinking about the word fair, or equal, or just, or free, right? Freed. There are loads of different ways of thinking about the word free, and we probably all have in mind one usage of the word free. And all a philosopher does, or one of the things that a philosopher does, I suppose, is to tear apart what those words mean and think about other ways of, using those words. And so when you're talking with a client or a sitter about where they're going in life and what they want, not just out of photos, but in general, and, other things in life, you tend to touch upon things like that. And so I get my stimulation, my need for creative thought out of that, as well as the ability to explore something perhaps a bit simpler, a bit purer, things like beauty and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I do.
And to obviously towards the end of the conversation, celebrate the latest news about you.
Yes.
Do you want to share with us a bit more?
So I went full-time self-employed on the 1st of January 2025, so about a year ago, and I was plague-ridden with the flu for about a month after that. It was couldn't get out of bed, and we were thinking about moving away, have a fresh start, maybe Bath, maybe Bristol, maybe Oxford. But the more and more I started to go to Folkestone, the more and more I fell in love with the town. It's an absolutely wonderful place. I started working at the workshop, and actually Lisa, who is the community manager of the workshop, which is a co-working space in Folkestone, fantastic woman. She, again, actually a networking goddess. She knows everyone and really good at putting people together. I started exploring the town, really, really liked it. And Creative Folkestone, which is an organisation in Folkestone, it's a charity that sort of renovates and runs a lot of the businesses in the middle of the town at sub-market rates and lets them out to creatives. So that's why Folkestone has this wonderful sort of community. Put up a couple of places that I went and visited. That didn't work out, but I now, after sort of 6 months of looking around at different places, finally have a studio of my own in Folkestone, which we had the launch party of last week. So it's 2 stories. I couldn't be more happy with it. It's about 100 square meters over 2 stories. There's natural light on the ground floor. It's got this big sort of gallery style window surround. And then the basement is all dark unless it's lit. So that's for artificial light. It's right in the middle of town. It's on Tontine Street. And it is the best case of paralysis by choice that I've ever paralysis of choice that I've ever experienced, because it's this wonderful white space with this beautiful natural light, which is definitely going to be like the next transition for the business. I've already done a few shoots. In fact, the Good Stuff team, so Helen and Ben came in last week. I'm going through their photos as well. Done a few photo shoots already, and as you can tell, it's difficult for me to reconcile that space and the possibility and potential of
That's
it.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's mine, 2-year lease, couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it sounds like you're buzzing with it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Sounds like something that
And we know anyone
need to
who
look
wants
at.
to contact you, you've got that beautiful website. For
Yes,
Sure.
chrishenryphotography.com.
LinkedIn as well, and all the other, definitely Instagram. I'm not sure Facebook. Maybe you
Yeah,
are.
all of those.
Oh, the
It's worthwhile saying actually that the studio, I'm also hiring it out to use for events and other places
okay.
as well. So we can get chairs or tables in there if people want. But it's rare, I think, to find actually a big open room, which is beautiful and people will enjoy spending time in, which is not kind of cluttered and which isn't going to cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're hiring both rooms out for events. And so anyone is planning an event in Folkestone, chrishenryphotography.com until the Folkestone Studios website is up and running. And that will be
Perfect.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming to spend the morning with us and sharing your story.
I really appreciate the
Fascinating.
We finally know
Yeah, we do.
the man behind
Behind the camera.
yes, and what's happened. Yeah, thank you very much for everything that you share with us, and for any good photo shoots, this is your man.
So hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode, sharing Chris's story. We look forward to sharing more stories with you very soon. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please do give us a like because we do appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed to our channels and followed us, please then do. And
also, if you want to help and support our channel and our project, follow the link below and buy us a coffee. All your help will be very much appreciated. Thank you, and
thank you very
see you
much.
next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.